I mean, we could play on your hat. Don't love it.
Yeah, sure you don't.
I don't love it.
Sure you don't. I think you have bigger issues to worry about as a Broncos fan than my hat.
That's probably true. I mean, and has been for several years now.
Have you seen the quarterbacks you guys have been trotting out for the past 8 years? You're worried about my hat?
I haven't. Every time they take the field on offense, I go like... I was watching the Kansas basketball game. My flight got canceled to Lubbock, actually, so I did not get to go down. I'm on Twitter, and I see a tweet from this guy named Nick Schwerdt comes across the screen, and it says, literally any starting big man on this current Kansas basketball team.
I wasn't yelling when I tweeted it.
Oh, it wasn't all caps. You're right. That's true. Let me try again. Literally any starting big man.
Well, there's a little more energy than that.
Okay. Literally any starting big man from the past in the Bill Self era. If you put that guy on this Kansas team, they'd be number one with a bullet. Immediately, I thought to myself, that is a good thought from my basketball friend. And I bet that is a good topic for our next basketball friends. And God darn it, here we are.
I noticed you didn't hit it with a like or a retweet, you know.
You noticed? You look at those things?
Well, no. I just assumed you didn't, and now you just told on yourself. So
I did. I outed myself.
This is Basketball Friends. He is Matt Tait. I am Nick Schwerdt. KU 1-1 through 2 conference games, and I want to start with David McCormack. Go back to the Oklahoma State game. The headline going into it was David McCormack benched in place of Mitch Lightfoot. David goes out and has the best game of the season for him. 17 points, career high 15 rebounds. If you've watched enough Kansas basketball, you know this story by now. Bill Self, master button pusher. The comments that he had before the game, I'll read you the exact quote. "We will not be a terrific team this year unless he," meaning David, "performs well. That's the bottom line. We got to do some things to help him perform better. That's it. It's not punishment. We got to do some things to help him perform better. It hasn't worked as of late." It's been a rough go for Dave this year. There were high hopes after the way he finished last season when he went from being a 9 points, 5 rebound a game guy in non-com play to all of a sudden being a 15-7 guy in Big 12 play. The beginning of this year has looked a lot like the beginning of last year. And Matt, I think a lot of that has to do with the way that this team has evolved from a season ago. Dave is no longer being asked to be one of their go-to guys offensively. He's being asked to evolve his game just as he did a season ago. And I think we're seeing those growing pains just like we saw last year entering conference play.
He's got to deliver. I mean, that's what you do when you're a senior. Ochai's role is different than it was last year. Christian Brown's role is different than it was last year. Remy Martin's role is different than it was last year. And those guys, at least on a more consistent level, especially the top 2 that I mentioned, they've found their way through it. And here, 14 games in, Dave's still trying to figure it out. I think he's making it harder than it needs to be. I think he's in his own head. I think he can't get out of that. And I think that's obvious when you watch him. I mean, he's posting up on air when there's no one to post up. He's not attacking when he should attack. He's spinning into the lane, into a double or triple team when he should be going the other way and going easy layup off the glass. I mean, it's just so much thinking with him right now. And that's part of your point. Like, I think he is thinking too much about what do I need to do? What should I be doing? What do I need to be? Who am I on this team? It's only natural for that to take some time and for this season to kind of progress this way. But it's to the point now where, number one, he's had enough time, I think, with this group. And number 2, he's out of time. They need him to figure it out quickly, or else it's going to be a really interesting ride the rest of the way.
Yeah, because he still is the answer. Like if you want to get cute and say that, no, Mitch is a better option than him at this point, or we saw Zach Clements come in the Texas Tech game. They were running a zone with Zach Clements in there, so it's not like he was being asked to do the same thing as him. At the end of the day, if you're talking about this team being a national championship caliber team, Dave's still the answer. Mitch Lightfoot's not going to be the starting 5-man on a national championship team. This version of David McCormack, quite frankly, isn't either. But if KU's going to get to that level, he has to learn to evolve with the rest of them. You look at last year's team, Matt, that was arguably the worst offensive team that Bill Self has had at Kansas. I don't know if this is the best offensive team that Bill Self's had at Kansas, but it has that potential. This is an incredibly talented backcourt, but they're being held back by their lack of talent in the front court. When you want to just talk about pure talent, Dave is still the most talented big man on this team, but he has to learn that you're no longer being asked to be the guy to take 10 to 13 shots a game. he's got to become a better decision maker. That's the one thing, like posting up on air, but it's the exact opposite too. When there's 3 guys on him, right, he's putting up that baby hook shot. And I don't mean this to just completely dump on David McCormack, because I think he is in a difficult position, but you still have to understand what's around you, what your team's strengths are offensively. And at no point is a guy who we've now seen 4 years of being a pretty inefficient offensive player, at no point is that going to be the focal point of what this team does well.
He wants to do well. I don't think anybody disputes that. And in some ways, him wanting that so much is what's causing the problems, because he's thinking so much about how it is going, how it looks, how it's creating this, that, or the other for other people, that it's just too much of this and not enough just playing ball. He has talked over the last 2 seasons, when he's been a junior and a senior in these bigger roles, he's talked so much about his good games come when he plays with a free mind. It's almost become cliche now. He says it every time: free heart, free mind, just play. He knows what to do, but for some reason, there's something in there that's blocking him from just doing that. Because when he plays free, he is much more effective, and at times he can be darn right unstoppable. Getting to that point where he can play with that free mind is so much harder. And I don't know if it's an urgency thing. I don't know if he's feeling pressure. I mean, look, like you talked about Mitch Lightfoot starting. That wasn't anything to do with Mitch Lightfoot maybe being a better option at the 5. That was Mitch Lightfoot's more efficient right now. And oh, by the way, maybe this will motivate Dave. Maybe this will give him a different perspective and take some of that pressure off. So even putting Mitch Lightfoot in the starting lineup was about David McCormack. Mitch Lightfoot is what he is. He's a terrific teammate. He's a grinder. He's a gamer. But yeah, you don't want him starting. All about, from this point on, Dave figuring it out mentally enough to where he goes out and he just plays. And that's easier said than done. But if he doesn't do it, they won't do much.
You know what I don't think anybody could have anticipated is the massive leaps that we were going to see from not just Ochai, but from Christian Brown as well. As good as those guys have been at knocking down shots from the perimeter, where they've been at their best, and in turn, where KU's been at their best, is in transition. This team forces turnovers. They push the tempo. They're fantastic in transition. Their field goal percentages are sky high. That's why their scoring is sky high. That's why KenPom has them as a top 5 most efficient offense in the country. Any way you slice it or dice it, this is a great offense, and they're at their best when they're pushing the tempo. That wasn't the case last year. They didn't get a lot of transition opportunities, which is why...
And they weren't great when they ran either.
No, but that's why Dave got force-fed the ball so much, was because they were so often in the half court. This team isn't, and I feel like that's the adjustment Dave hasn't been able to make. Part of that too, though, Matt, is Remy Martin, because Remy Martin was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. The reason why he was that is because nobody could have anticipated the leaps from Christian and Ochai. And Remy, to maybe a lesser extent, is in a similar position that Dave is at, where he is also trying to evolve his game and figure that out too, because that's another piece of it. Dave may start to fit in and start to get more comfortable, but if Remy does that as well, if you're looking for a reason for optimism, you've got 2 guys who, at least in flashes, have shown that they can be really talented difference makers at this level, and we haven't even seen even close to what they're capable of this year.
Yeah, I mean, the pieces are there. There's no doubt about it. The pieces have to deliver. The bench is still a question mark, but if you could get Dave and Remy going, and you have Mitch and Jalen as your 6-7 off the bench, that helps the bench too, right? Part of the reason it's been easier for Remy Martin to evolve his game is because he's enjoying this. He's never played with dudes as talented as Christian Brown and Ochai Agbaji around him. And so, yeah, he liked to shoot it a lot, and he loved having the ball in his hands, and that was who he was at Arizona State. But that's because that's what they needed. At Kansas, he doesn't need to be that. And so he's cool with that. He'll take the shots when he needs to. And I think if we've seen anything in the last maybe week or so, Remy Martin maybe isn't what everybody thought he was going to be, or the preseason Player of the Year or anything like that. But this is a different team when he's out there and when he's not out there. And him being injured right now and hobbled a little bit and missing time, that's showing up too. So if we look back in April after a pretty good run and we see, they struggled in January, but boy, Remy figured it out and got healthy and got going again and fit in, and Dave put it all together and became what he was, the second half of last year, then all of a sudden, of course, this team's a Final Four contender because there's so much talent there, but they've got to figure out a way to do it. And I thought the most telling quote that Self gave from the Texas Tech game was, he said, it would really be nice for the coaches and I think for the players if we knew what we were going to get every game. And right now they don't. And that's because too many guys are still kind of riding that wave of figuring this whole thing out. If they figure it out, this team has just as much potential as anyone ever thought they did.